Welcome to our next episode of Freedom Founders. Today we're joined by RP Singh. He's a content marketing guru and an entrepreneur in his own right. And he will tell you guys how you can leverage content marketing to build your brand and scale your business.
I'm turning dreams into reality. In the lab with the formula and chemistry. The memories spark and motivate and make the industry shake. We put the balls in the brakes. I'm talking one chance at best. Yes, painting pictures for the culture, keep the brushes fresh. Flip the cover.
Welcome, RP.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Logan and I are very excited to have you on. You're actually
am I.
our second guest. You probably didn't know.
Yeah.
But we're still pretty early on in our journey. Great to have you here. For those of you guys out there who haven't met you at your conference or other conferences or seen you on TV, like I have, tell us a little bit about yourself. Walk us through your journey across a few countries, a few great companies.
Oh, that's a long one. I'll cut it short. So I'll start with my last education, which I did from New Delhi in India. So I'm an MBA by education. So as an MBA student, you always aspire for great marketing roles, and came across this discipline of web marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at that point of time, it was called web marketing.
What year was that?
It was 2001.
See, that was early days.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I was 11 then.
You still called it web marketing back then. Yeah.
And so Group M was a milestone in my career, and spent about 6-7 years with them.
Yeah.
Including all their agencies, and that is when I got some time to spend in China. So they sent me to China to set up a new digital practice in China. Now that was interesting as it sounds, because China was far ahead as compared to India, even US. When I landed in Shanghai, in that very year, China surpassed US in the number of digital users.
Yeah. When was that?
That was in 2007.
Oh, really? How old were you then?
I was
Roughly. Oh, I'm not going to ask for your
You
date of
just
birth,
did.
but no.
27, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting time. I remember when we talked about this briefly, but when I moved to China, it was 2008, and I moved there from Europe, which was interesting. The financial crisis obviously had just hit, and I moved over to China, and you couldn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
It was just like, because it was domestic consumption was just on the rise still, and you wouldn't feel it in shopping centers on the road. You know, unemployment was never an issue, right? So that was awesome to see that difference, you know, in the different markets.
So China's digital marketing landscape at that point of time was very, very different from what I had learned so far. In terms of using digital for marketing, they were lagging behind.
Okay.
So they were using traditional ways of measuring or using digital marketing. You know, they would still sell digital marketing the way print is sold or the way TV is sold at that point of time. Things have obviously changed by now. Yeah.
So after that, you spent 3 years, or how long did you spend there?
I spent only about a year.
A year, yeah.
Came back to India.
Yeah.
So another challenge was waiting for me. You would have heard of a very prestigious brand called Nokia.
Yeah. Yeah, long time ago. My second phone.
Ago. And Nokia was still Nokia in 2008. It was the leader globally, at least in APAC. And then Starcom in Singapore. So they were looking for someone to manage the Procter & Gamble digital business. And again, interesting times because when I joined, Procter & Gamble had about 23 brands active in ASEAN, and only 3 or 4 out of those 23 brands had any kind of digital presence.
So that was early 2010s, right?
That was 2010 actually. And then so there was a trend of Facebook was quite new at that point of time. Facebook for brands was very new. Everybody was opening these brand pages on Facebook without knowing what to do with it. And that was across, and P&G was not an exception. So when the account moved to Mediacom, I moved back to India to join an advertising company, Ogilvy. Now, that was a very, very big difference in terms of culture, because I moved from a media organization to a creative organization. The thought process was completely different. So I didn't spend much time in an advertising agency. So I joined a mid-sized network, digital network, which was basically serving small businesses or small enterprises.
Okay.
And that is where the maximum learning happened for me.
Really?
As a digital marketer.
Okay. So not in the big agencies, but in the...
I would say it was a different kind of learning.
Yeah.
And markets like Indonesia, India, China, SMEs and SMBs are actually the backbone of the economy. So that network, Cyrez group of companies, we used to serve only these kind of companies, new startups.
When did you start venturing into content marketing? When did you start developing a passion for that? Or
so about 6-7 years back, I attended this event called Content Marketing World in Ohio. Digital marketing in its traditional sense started to lose its sheen. The response rates were declining. Nobody was clicking on banners. Ad blockers came in.
yeah.
Now, if you talk about India and Indonesia, almost 50% of the ads on mobile are blocked.
Yeah.
So we thought of doing a small workshop in India about what content can do for your brands and how content can be used, how content should be used. So eventually, the first edition, we got about 250 plus attendees.
That's awesome.
Purely organic, purely out of the need, out of interest. We did not do any paid marketing at all.
Yeah.
We only announced it across our social networks, whatever we had that point of time. Spoke to some of my friends, spoke to some of my networks, spoke to my previous students of these workshops of digital marketing.
So that was obviously not part of any of your existing jobs, right?
Not
You
at
built
all.
it up on the side.
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we had that kind of huge interest, we were very excited because a lot of global platforms like Outbrain, Taboola, Yahoo, they all supported that conference in the first year itself, because there was none in APAC at that point of time. Even today there is none. So we announced the second one during the first conference itself, that we should do a second one for sure. And we announced a 2-day conference this time. Then after 3 years, I thought that there will be more conferences because the subject is interesting and it is need of the hour from a marketeer point of view. But found that there is no such conference of that scale in the ASEAN region. When we say ASEAN, we look at Singapore as a benchmark market because most of the conferences happen here. So I looked at Singapore. I moved my base to Singapore. I thought, let's start ASEAN edition of this conference from Singapore. So in the 4th year of CMS, so we started first edition of ASEAN edition. A lot of people told me otherwise, that that there are a lot of conferences happening in Singapore. Every week there are 2 conferences happening in the marketing space. So you cannot survive in Singapore. You should not launch in Singapore. Do it in Indonesia, Philippines, or any other market where you can test waters first. But I thought, if we stick to our principles, which we had been following for CMS in India, we must create some space for ourselves. So we announced a Singapore edition, and the first edition itself was attended by 250 plus people, which according to us was a huge success in itself, because again we were looking at only 100 people, in the first edition itself. So we got huge interest and appreciation from a lot of senior marketeers in Singapore, because of the fact there was nobody talking about content specifically in that dedicated manner across APAC. And content by then had become a burning issue of brands. It still is, and that's what we are trying to solve for brands. So we did our first edition in 2016.
This is still on the sidelines, right?
I was still working, yeah. So, interestingly and thankfully, all the organizations that I worked for while I was doing CMS have supported this cause in a very open way. Yeah. They also thought that this is something not for any individual gains. This is for the industry because we didn't have any team. We still don't have a team which runs CMS. CMS is a voluntary body now. It is run by marketeers every year. These marketeers, which we put together every year, they change every year, whosoever is available at that point of time. So these 10-15 people, they keep on changing. Some people may come back after 2 years. Now I am available. So that is how we work. And the organizations that I have worked for have understood that this is for a cause. This is for a bigger cause of the marketing fraternity. This is not individualistic in any way.
So at some point you decided to leave your corporate jobs and concentrate on the summit and go all in basically in content marketing, both in terms of summit, but also helping some clients, with your experience in content, right?
Yes. So during the first edition in Singapore, that was the time when I took that decision, because by that time, a lot of people were attending, a lot of CMOs were attending CMS Asia as a conference, and they were coming to me to seek suggestions, references of companies who could help them out in scaling or in starting their content marketing journey. So, and as CMS, we were getting each and every kind of ecosystem partner. We were getting partners who would do content marketing for brands. So we were getting agencies, we were getting tech platforms, we were getting brands. So CMS became that conduit or that platform which enabled amalgamation of all these ecosystem partners. So that was the time I thought, let me try helping brands with some bit of consulting and running CMS Asia full time. Because by the time CMS Asia had become a full-fledged conference, fourth edition in India was attended by around 700 people, which in no way a small conference.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to conferences here, there's, like you said, there's a ton, no? Like a ton of conferences. But then you go to many conferences and you see 150, 200 people, but it appears like it's massive, when leading up to it, and then you kind of go in the room, it's like, this is kind of small, And we talked about this earlier, how difficult it is to find a good conference. And the same way it's, not easy to do, a good podcast or, or like content in general. It's bloody difficult to do. So it's not easy to execute. But for those guys out there that have a passion they want to follow, but they're stuck in a job, whether they love it or not. But what do you tell these guys to motivate themselves to kind of just go forward and take that step at the right time? Because I think it's also, if you would have taken that step after the first edition of India, maybe it would have been too early. Maybe you were not big enough. But who knows, right? But what are your thoughts around those situations, taking that first step?
Sure. I wish I was a motivational speaker. But, I don't have any advice as such, but I can share what I did and what kind of thought process was going on in my mind when I took that step. I think having a good backup of finance is always good. So what those jobs helped me when I was about to venture out is a good financial base which I had built over a time. It was the idea of starting it 100% focus on CMS Asia was cooking in my mind for last 1 year, 1 to 2 years. But in the meanwhile, I was building my financial base. What if something goes wrong was always in my mind, because I came from a job kind of background. you know, and a lot of people go through that same history which I went through. So having a comfort of salary getting credited every month automatically, it's very difficult to part with. That thought itself is so enriching. It's difficult to part ways with. But that is where your life changes. If you take that decision, and if you don't take that decision, can change your entire career path. So I built that financial base so that I can sustain myself for at least 6 to 12 months, even if I don't get any salary. And the only thing I was sure about was that this conference, I wanted to build it my way. You know, I had been attending so many conferences, marketing conferences in last 15, 16 years. And I wanted to build on the problems or the gray areas of those conferences. If you go to any conferences today, you know what to expect. You know how you will be dealt with. You know there will be networking sessions. You know there will be drinks after the sessions. There will be breaks. We changed that upside down. We focused only on content. We said, come for content. That's what you get, and go. So we changed the model of conferencing completely. So only because as an audience of those other marketing conferences, I knew the problems. You know, so coming back to what I did, so I created some principles which I always wanted to follow, and which I never wanted to compromise when I started this business of mine. Now I call this as business. So I think sticking to your principles. So number one principle is build some base. It could be financial base. It could be some manpower base in some cases. You know, have your team planned out. In my case, there was no team requirement as such. So the only constraint was finances. Because in conferences, all your payments are in advance. You know, whether you're booking a venue, whether, you know, whatever you do, your payments are in advance, and the payments come in later to you. You know, tickets and sponsors or whatever. So build a base, then stick to your core thought of doing business. Obviously, there will be corrections required. Obviously, there will be some adjustment required. But stick to what you thought about when you're starting out a new business. Then thirdly, I would say, don't get too much stuck in your own way of doing business. Because this we have learned by doing this year, Singapore will be 10th edition of this conference overall. And we have changed the conference that we started completely. The genesis, the DNA has not changed, but the way we deliver conference has completely changed, because there is technology played now. What we used to do earlier manually can now be done digitally. You know, so these are the adjustments I am talking about. Don't get stuck with your traditional ways of thinking. Change with the trends. Change with what new customers would require. Because in last 7 years, the kind of audience we were targeting have completely changed. We thought all kinds of partners, all kinds of marketing fraternity partners will enjoy this conference. But in these last 6 years, the audience composition has completely changed. You know, so be ready for these subtle nuances in change of your demographics of your audiences. You may find new audiences altogether. Suddenly, the CMOs and one level below CMOs is the audience which has become the largest audience for us, which we thought would never be the audience, because typically marketeers do not go to conferences because the conferences are so boring.
No, it's true.
So they had stopped going to conferences. But in CMS Asia, because of the way we deliver content, the innovative ways of delivering conferences year on year is bringing new audience all the time. And this CMO composition was only around 30% for us.
Yeah.
It has now become 70%.
Wow.
So there is a saying in the market, when I say market, Singapore and India, that if you want to meet marketeers, go to CMS Asia.
Yeah.
Which we love.
You know what I find when I go to conferences, I feel like a lot of conferences are using bigger brands, speakers coming from big organizations as their main, marketing pitch, right?
Yeah.
So the next Facebook head of country, the next, big travel company we talked earlier, the next Lazada guy,
Yeah.
So, but then I often find they usually are in a lot of different conferences, right?
Yeah.
You see the same person
Yeah.
going across, a lot of different conferences. But I often find the smaller guy, the smaller company, has the more unique journey and often content, and story to tell. So I wish there would be more conferences who would.
No, I totally agree with you. In fact, that is third or fourth point which I want to make about starting out. When you start out as a small brand or as a small organization, not even a brand, don't compete with large conferences straight away. You cannot shout them out.
Yeah.
There will never be enough resources with you that you can completely shout out, or you cannot win the share of voice with them. You cannot do anything which they do because of budgetary constraints, manpower constraints, and all other kind of constraints. And that was a similar problem we were dealing with. On one side you have ad techs of the world, then you have other large conferences. What we wanted to focus on our unique offering, that if you want to learn about content marketing and nothing else, this is the conference.
Yeah.
Come, learn, go. And this is only an educative or a training kind of conference, not a 35,000 view of content marketing, which typically the conferences are.
That's what it usually is. So what you're doing is you're building brand rather than building brand based on a solid product experience that you provide, rather than competing on ad spend.
Not at all.
Right?
So we practice what we preach.
Yeah.
So we don't spend too much on paid media. All our growth that we have seen so far is purely organic through content marketing itself. And as you rightly said, when you go to a conference, that this speaker, slide number 5, will be this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is a problem with.
Or you've seen the same presentation
again and again.
Just another dude from the same company.
If you look at our speakers of last 9 editions, 70% of the speakers that we have got are the first time speakers. And when you get those kind of speakers, they speak with authenticity because they are not PR trained yet.
Yeah.
They speak their true journey. They speak about things which they did while doing their job. They don't talk about trends. They don't talk about what will happen in the future. Yeah. They talk about their experience, and that's what people are dying to hear.
Yeah. So how important do you think is, for a small business or a new brand that is starting out, how important do you think is building brand rather than competing on, paid media spend, which, most businesses will not be able to do because there's always going to be a larger competitor. There's always going to be somebody who's going to spend more, right, in most areas. Yeah. And how important do you think is content and content marketing for building brand long term?
So I'll answer this in 2 parts. One, the first part is, don't act like an established brand when you're a new brand or when you're a new organization. As I said, you cannot shout out. You cannot compete with them at any level. The only way you can compete with them is by staying true to your audience, staying relevant to your audience. And slowly, by delivering those unique, relevant experiences, you can slowly aim to build your own brand. If you look at all the new age brands which were built in the last 4-5 years, and if you look at their journey, how they started, they never competed with large established organizations.
Yeah.
They slowly built their community. They slowly relied on the word of mouth of their satisfied consumers or satisfied audiences, and that's how the community grew, and the organization became a brand. Obviously, they had to do a lot of adjustments on the way. Some also change their business model completely, but in the process, they created their own brand. So that's number one: staying true, staying relevant to their audience. Now, coming to the importance of content, I think as a small organization, the only thing you can do which does not cost a lot is content. I think there is a lot of misconception around content. Content is looked at as only marketing content, the content that you use for marketing.
Yeah.
What we are trying to educate people about when we do CMS is that content goes beyond marketing. You know, when you build a website, whatever you put out there is content.
Yeah.
If you have a showroom, if you have a shop, retail shop, whatever the sales guy tells the customer is also content. Whenever a customer calls your call center and he's waiting for someone to answer, the automated response, the wait time, to cover up that wait time is also content.
Yeah.
So companies, especially small companies, need to look at content in a very, very different way. Even if you do not have your website, you're selling products on an e-commerce platform, let's say Amazon or Lazada or any other local e-commerce platform. The product description you put out about your product is also content. So content has a very, very vital, important, all-pervasive role to play in your business, not even in your marketing. If you're thinking content purely from a marketing perspective, which is not wrong in any way, you can treat it that way. It will do wonders there. But what I'm saying is content goes beyond marketing. Especially for small startups, once you have acquired a customer, especially during the CRM stage, when you want to, a lot of e-commerce players use this term called ARPU, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
if you want to increase that, the only way you can connect with your audience is not by sending them offers that buy new domain, buy new hosting package. No, they might not need a new domain, but give them content which is useful for their business.
Yeah.
And there could be multiple buckets of such content. So therefore content becomes not purely a marketing tool to get a customer. It goes beyond, So therefore, paid media versus content, as I said, you will never have those kind of spends with you. You will never have those kind of budgets with you as a small startup, which can get you any share of voice against the biggies. There is no point spending.
Well, what should a small company do or a small business do in terms of content marketing and branding?
I think small steps. Again, when we talk about content marketing, or when typically brands talk about content marketing, they are confused, or they are focusing their entire energy on creating content, which is only 25% of the thing. So if I have to span out entire content marketing discipline, there are 4 parts to it: content creation, content management, content distribution, and content measurement. And all of them need equal amount of focus and effort and energy and budgets. Currently, the scenario is, if you create a content, a piece of content. It could be video, infographic, white paper, a report. Brands or organizations spend 80 to 90% of their money there, which means they are left with nothing to either manage, distribute, or measure content.
Yeah.
And that is also because of the kind of partners they are working with. So if you're working with a media agency as a partner, they will tell you need to put 80% of your budget on distribution. That's where they make money. If you work with a creative agency, they will tell you need to create good content, because if you create good content, it will travel on its own.
Yep.
So therefore, 80 to 90% of the budget goes to creation. If you work with a digital agency, they will tell you need to buy this tool, this tool, this tool, this tool, so that you can do good job at analytics. And that is where you need to spend. So 80%, 90% of your money goes into analytics tools. Analytics or tools or
Yep.
stuff that they want you to buy.
Yeah, content calendar management tools and whatnot. Yeah.
Or invest in costly CMSs, like
Yep.
you know what costly CMSs are like. So brands who are about to start their content marketing journey, they need to look at these 4 pieces together. Unless they have a measurement mechanic, they should not create any content. They should not do any video, any textual content, anything. They should not create any piece of content without having a measurement phenomena, a measurement yardstick.
So measure meaning KPIs, objectives, right?
To simply put, yes, you should know what this content is going to do for you.
Yeah.
Whether it is going to get you traffic, leads. If traffic, how much traffic, at what cost.
Yeah.
If leads, how many number of leads, at what frequency. So once you know what you are doing with this content, then you should create content. And creating content is super easy. You have tools, you have agencies, you have partners, you have self-serve tools today to create content, whether it is video, infographics, textual content. The problem starts after you have created content, because today as a user or as a consumer, I have plethora of options. I have plenty of content to consume. So why will I choose your content to view or to consume? So therefore you need to distribute content in the right channels, in the right format, to the right audience. So gone are the days of creating one video, plastering it across YouTube, website, Facebook, Twitter, without even adjusting the length as per platform.
So the platforms would actually differ amongst the businesses or industries that you have, right?
So content marketing question comes later. First you would have already decided which platforms. It should not be other way around, that now that we have created content, let's plaster it across platforms.
Where do we go? Yeah. And also that, different platforms, we see it with our content, different platforms, users have different behavior on different platforms, right? An Instagram story is not, the same as somebody watching a video on YouTube. I think it's very, very different.
It took long time for brands to understand the difference between a vertical video and a horizontal video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you need to be wary of those nuances as well.
So what do you think about, when we think about content in our context, we used to do a lot of written content, and I don't know if that's kind of the old way, but we internally kind of call it the old way of content marketing, doing a white paper, spending a ton of time on that, trying to, distribute it to as many people as we can. But then we moved away we didn't move away, but I think we added another element of video content to it, right? And we felt that, building videos or through videos, it's the easiest for us to build a relationship with a customer or with our audience rather than through written content.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on video and just picking up the camera?
Video as a platform adds that human touch, which a textual format cannot. Having said that, I'm not discounting the power of textual content either. It's only a matter of audiences. If you talk to my father, he will love reading text.
Yeah.
If you talk to my younger brother, he will throw away any text that you send him.
Yeah.
So, and that's the difference we're talking about. Once you know these subtle differences in your audience, and the difference I talked about is a huge difference. And there could be very subtle differences in the audiences.
Yeah.
That you will learn only by experimenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So basically, you just need to know your audience first, the persona, right?
I think that's the starting point of any business. Forget content marketing, forget digital marketing, forget any kind of marketing. If you're starting out a new business, you need to know your audience first.
Yeah.
All these things come much later.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's a good way to end, I think, today's episode.
Yeah.
I think knowing your personas obviously is a great starting point. We want to give you an opportunity to plug any website you want to plug, whether it's for content marketing. When is the next summit coming up?
It's on 28th of August in Singapore.
Okay. Where can people sign up?
It's cmsasia.org.
Okay, good. We'll be there. We haven't signed up yet, but we'll
Most
be
welcome.
there. Okay. Cool. We thank you for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to listen to your story and share your insights with our
It was a sheer pleasure to share what I've been through, and I hope it will be slightly useful for your users as well.
Sure, it will be. Cool. All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Like, subscribe, and share part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
If you're out there, like, subscribe, share.
Yeah.
Where we're on YouTube, we are
YouTube, Facebook, and then on audio channels, we're on Spotify and iTunes, pending approval.
pending on a few approvals, but
Yeah.
you'll find us somewhere.
We'll get it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.